Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm ZKast Caraval from ZK Research, and I'm excited to be doing the security panel today. We're going to be talking security trends. Typically, I do this with just one other person, but we're going to do more of a panel format today. I'm actually really excited about that. I think, obviously, if you look at the way IT is evolving, it seems like no matter what year I run surveys on what companies' top priorities are, security is always the number one priority. And I don't really see that change in the foreseeable future. So being able to talk about security, particularly in the context of the challenges facing SMBs and how they deal with security issues is interesting. And I think when you're at the large enterprise level, you sometimes just budget your way out of some of the problems by overspending and overstaffing things. But smaller companies can't really afford to do that. And so they need to do that through technology. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Joining me, I've got three great speakers. I've got first Ben Yarbrough, CEO of Calyptix. Ben, hi, how you doing?
Great. Thanks so much for the invitation, Zias.
Yeah, and I'm going to hold on sort of introducing Calyptix because I'm going to have you do that in a bit. Second up, Andrew Baker, founder and owner of Brainwave Consulting Company, our managed service provider. Andrew, can you just do a brief intro on yourself and what Brainwave Consulting does?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Zias. Brainwave Consulting is a small boutique consultancy that does managed services for small businesses, particularly around security and IT operations and cloud operations.
Okay, and Eric Kiehn, you are the president and CEO of C&W Technologies. Same question to you, just introduction on yourself and what C&W does.
I'm glad to be here. And my company is going on 39 years old. We've been around in the computing space for quite some time, and we service the small and mid-sized business, mainly their technology, managing it, making it work, and making it so that the clients don't have headaches. We take on their headaches for them.
So 39 years. So you were doing computing when computing was kind of a new thing. I think that
absolutely. And I've been actually in the industry even a little bit longer than my business. So yeah, it was the early days. So.
Yeah, no, I started my career as a mainframe person, so it's fun. That's a topic for a different discussion, though.
Yeah.
I'm going to flip back to you, Ben. And thanks for doing this. And Calyptix is a security vendor that I think really specializes in this segment of the market. But could you talk a little bit about the history of Calyptix, what you do, and how you solve customer problems?
Absolutely. I mean, we're totally focused on the small and medium business community, and they're our people, and we're 100% committed there. And our mission at Calyptix is to provide the most integrated, easy to use cybersecurity solution for them. And that really stems from a history perspective from our founder, Lawrence Teo. In his PhD thesis some years ago, he realized that in order for organizations to prepare themselves for the oncoming challenges of cybersecurity, we would need to band together. It was a team, it's going to be a team sport, right? And there's nowhere more evident than in small businesses that's underserved, limited resources. They can't spin their way out of these problems. They have to team their way out of these problems. And that's what we help them do with our technology, which we've implemented today as Community Shield.
All right. And from what I understand, too, you're not the typical vendor that wants to sell product and get out of there. You take a very hands-on approach and like to think of yourself more as a partner to these customers, versus a vendor.
Absolutely. The shortage is in small business is trained cybersecurity professionals, right? And how do you augment that reality? It's not through more tech. It's through alignment of people, tools, training, and responsibility. And so we see ourselves very much as being on the bench of our partners because they need help at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I know your secret sauce is the all-in-one appliance. Can you just talk a little bit about your customers and comparatively, if they were to try and go build that through best of breed or point products, what would they be looking at price-wise compared to what you are?
It'd be astronomical to consider it, to just buy it or license it, let alone the expertise to then weave it together and integrate it. So our solution includes all the critical things for a small business to set up a secure network, but we don't walk away from that. After you've set it up, whether you've segmented it or set the different controls for intrusion detection, prevention, content filtering, and the like, remote access, you've still got to maintain it. You've got to monitor it. It's got to stay up to date. And so not only is it easy to use and deploy, the maintenance is automatic. It's included.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I was talking to somebody with this the other day where the automatic updates that you do to patch and fix bugs, we've become kind of accustomed to that in our consumer life, right? That you think about, I don't know when Google updates Chrome or Microsoft updates Outlook or something.
This phone gets updated.
Yeah.
And it needs to be, right? And
yeah.
And the edge of a small business environment at their location, it's not only at the forefront of cyber, it's covers the entire organization, and it covers every data transmission into the network and out of the network.
Yeah, and so I think you're bringing that cloud-like type of updates too. So that's great. Now, Eric and Andrew, I'm going to bring you guys back in on. Let's talk a little bit about just the security landscape today. We'll start with you, Eric. From your own perspective, and then the customers that you talk to, what are some of the biggest security challenges that companies face today? Obviously, I could ask you this every year, and the challenges are different. But what's current here?
The security landscape has become much more complex than it has been in the past. It's always been complex, but it is even more complex. And part of the issue is that what our clients, our small business clients, our medium-sized business clients, the data that they have accessible or might be on their system, might be in their environment, or just communications that they are working with, back and forth, or need to be monitored. They need to be managed. There needs to be something that is you want to call the gatekeeper that knows what is happening and make sure that the intrusion can be prevented. And so that the challenge is pretty much the same as it always has been, but it's multiplied to a much higher extent than it has been in the past.
All right, Andrew, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that the two biggest issues that my customers are concerned with are ransomware. They're very nervous about that relative to other security threats, and compliance being imposed upon them by their customers, especially larger customers. So those are the two areas where they only want to size their environments a certain way, but now they're getting these impositions in terms of, hey, you need to have this, you need to be able to do this, we need to be able to see this, and then the threat of ransomware.
Yeah, and I know to Eric's point on complexity, I just recently ran a survey myself and asked IT pros about security, and 88% said the environment. It's a bit of diverging data points, because on one side, I think it was 93% said they're trying to reduce costs, and then 88% said the environment's more complicated. And so those two things don't really.
They don't align.
Yeah, and so you're doing less with more, right? Instead of the other way around. And I think that has been a challenge. And part of the problem with security is that every time there's a new threat, there's a whole new wave of startups that create appliances to solve that one specific aspect of it, but just layers on more and more products, which is challenging. And Andrew, I'm going to come back to you. When you think about the way you approach security today versus maybe even just a few years ago, how's that changed? How are you thinking about security today?
Security today is a little bit harder because each year the challenge and the risk moves closer to the endpoint. And so now it's the person, right? So before you could kind of perimeterize all of your security and largely be safe in a regular work environment, right? So you could lock things down and control the endpoint. Now people have, a variety of endpoints that they're using, and security is generally somewhat invasive. It's somewhat intrusive. So the goal is to how do you make it seamless at their level and still get a measure of security and track all of that.
Yeah, and how about you, Eric? And specifically talk about you think of the way the world's changed, right? We have more people working from home. We're using more cloud services. How's that changed your approach to security?
Well, it has radically changed the approach to the security. We have to look at it from a standpoint of, okay, those individuals working from home, how do they gain access to their cloud services that they run? How do we protect them? Do we have a centralized point where we actually funnel everything through so that it can be managed and secured? And to a point earlier about compliance, some of the compliance requirements going out coming along from insurance companies, for instance, or onerous for the small business market. And unless you have the proper device and the proper methods to to monitor what is going on and secure your site, you may not be insurable. So the small business is facing every bit of issue that a large business faces, and yet they have to do it at a budget price. So,
and I would comment is that every one of these small organizations or medium organizations that these guys serve has its own unique requirements or needs, right? They need to be able to tailor their configuration, their security posture. It may be looser or it may be tighter, and they need the tools that they can implement and use.
Yeah, and I think also it seems over the years, and we'll pivot a little bit to talking about the converged security approach. We've put an awful lot of pressure on the end user to be the integration point for the technology, right? Your actual user has to know what to use, what kind of when to use what kind of application, and under what scenario. And then if the VPN's not working, you have to do this. And I've always said, if you're making the user the integration point, you're just setting yourself up for failure, because I mean, you want them to do their job well, not be security experts. And frankly, with the sophistication of threats today, even the best security people are falling prey to phishing and things like that. So, Eric, I'm going to pop back to you. We touched on this a little bit on the best of breed versus converged appliance, but talk about some of the benefits of the converged appliance, and then even within that, think about like the Calyptix approach is dedicated to that space versus there's a lot of large enterprise vendors that have tried to come down market.
Yeah.
And why those solutions haven't done well here.
Well, I think part of the reason is the way Calyptix was developed. It was developed from the ground up for the small business market. And we even recognized, we were actually first introduced to Calyptix by Microsoft, because Microsoft saw that the potential and the advantage of the Calyptix approach. So it's been built up for the small to medium-sized business, and that is because of that they have put into play the elements that a provider of two small businesses need: the automated updates, the capabilities of easy management, no matter which level of box you have, the interface is all the same. The logging and so forth. So it's vitally important, if you want to have a site secure, that it's easy to deploy, easy to use, and easy to manage. And that has been their approach from day one, and it has worked for us, and it's worked for others I know as well. So
yeah, it's interesting that sometimes when people say easy, they think it's not as sophisticated, but
right.
I think if you look at an iPhone, that's probably the easiest device there is out there, and the engineering work that goes behind it to make it easy, it's actually very difficult. And so when you see something easy to use, the vendor's actually gone through the painstaking process of doing that. How about you, Andrew? What are your thoughts on this concept of best of breed versus converged?
So it is a long-standing battle, right? Trying to figure out whether to apply best of breed. I think that over time, as technology gets better, you don't have to do best of breed, right? When there's a significant difference between the best you can get in an environment and what the commodity level is, then it makes sense to have that argument. But like with processors today, when the basic processor you get out the gate has 8 cores and can do all of this stuff, you don't need as many use cases that require a specific processor. Similarly, we're seeing a lot of security, a lot of tools, the ability to, the industry's thinking about security, so it's baked into more things from the beginning. So you don't have to go best of breed anymore, and it's better to get broader coverage. The other thing about it, in the way that Calyptix has done it, is there are a lot of features that most people won't use, and that scope, that surface area adds risk. If you're not using it, it's just there. It could be poorly configured. It could have vulnerabilities. It just adds risk. So actually having a targeted set of products that cover all of your bases is better because it's a narrower focus, and it's better to be missing one or two features you really want than to have 13 you don't need that are sitting there adding vulnerabilities, adding costs.
Yeah, I think there's also an element of even just being able to keep policies and things up to date. I talked to a CISO the other day, and this was at a large enterprise that said that he finally understands that best of breed everywhere does not lead to best in class threat protection. And in fact, even just he talked about having two different firewall vendors, just in that part of the network alone, right? And being able having to keep the patches up to date, the code up to date, the policies make sense, right? It was so difficult that he felt that they were actually hurting their security posture by trying to do that. So, now Andrew,
I had the opportunity to speak with somebody who retired from the Navy in network security recently, and he explained to me the billions of dollars that are spent towards simplification and standardization to drive that very point, security, right? You cannot manage disparate attack surfaces or situations, at scale. It doesn't work.
Yeah, no, I think we've tried to do that over the many times. I think obviously we like to swing the pendulum one way or the other, and we'll probably start talking about that again in years, and we'll go through the same lessons. Andrew, staying on that theme of consolidation, can you give me any specific customer examples of or I know you're looking at the product now, where you think it might help customers and improve security posture?
Oh, I have a number of my customers that I got standardized on other products for the same reason. They were using a lot of different firewalls, and I got them a firewall vendor that I felt, gave enough of the feature set, good price point, easier to manage because we're all doing it. But now a lot of those customers don't need a lot of the features that are available here. So from a value proposition, shifting them to a Calyptix product or waiting until their licenses are expired and moving to a Calyptix product is even better, right? Because they will benefit from the narrower focus on the core features that they do need. They would benefit from something like Community Shield, where they're going to get the scope of security based on what everyone in the environment is seeing. And they will have a little bit more leverage to say, hey, we need this feature, and their voice has a little bit more weight than when they're speaking to the multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Yeah, and have you been able to quantify what that means in terms of ROI?
Not yet.
Okay.
I have not been able to do, I have not gotten to that place yet. I shouldn't say I haven't been able to do it. I haven't really gotten to that place yet, but I feel as though from a simplification standpoint, right, in terms of my services to them and how much it will cost me to provide those services to them, I already see value there because it just means I see escalating cost in the way that security is being done elsewhere, and I see the ability to not go there. So I can at a very back of the napkin level, there's already value there, but I wouldn't put a number to it just this second.
Great. Same question to you, Eric. Can you give an example? And if you have any a specific ROI, that'd be great to hear.
Yeah, I think regarding the ROI, the best ROI is no penetration, no security breaches, no compromises. And I can say that over the years, we have had very few, if any, that have actually any security instances that have occurred because of a failure of the security that's been put in place by Calyptix. There've been other causes, but not through direct hacking or direct compromise of the site that the Calyptix was blocking. So the return on investment is monumental to our clients because they often don't realize the true value of time, recovery, and so forth. So to what Andrew is saying, the dollar value is hard to put in play when you don't have the security breaches to actually look at and say, okay, this is what it was costing you to actually have a security compromise situation. But I can say that also from a partner standpoint, the return on investment has been significant because of the way the Calyptix product line has been designed and the way we can deploy, implement, get up and running, and know a site is secure very quickly, and then managed and supported going on. So,
all right. And Ben, anything you want to add there?
I think it's in the small business space, ROI is can be difficult because the varying nature, and one small organization might have $1,000 breach. It might be a $800,000 breach. Those are the numbers we kind of see, right? But it's a very personal situation with each organization. And so the ability to stop and block and prevent these type of scenarios can be absolutely devastating. So it is very personal, but when we've given these guys the ability to shrink their attack surface, like with geofence, that can reduce 80% of the hundreds of thousands of events that occurs at their edge every day. And the other side is you take the community shield, which is then an added layer of largely domestic infrastructure that's being used to probe, attack, try to get into the networks. It makes that needle, threading that needle for the bad guy really difficult. So in order for them to come after our customers, they got to do it really, really hard. And so there's an ROI on both sides, right? The good side and the bad side. And we're really focused on driving that cost up to the adversary, because the more costly it is to attack our guys, then they're left alone. And so I think with the shared intelligence, making that automatic is tremendous. And it's a team sport.
Yeah, and certainly the security industry, the intelligence has become a lot bigger part of it. It's not just trying to react to viruses and things anymore. That's been a big change in the industry. Data actually plays a big difference. And so let's pivot a little bit. I think we certainly underscored the fact that the integrated appliance has a lot of value. Let's look into the crystal ball here, and let's look out into the future a little bit. And then, since security is always changing, I'm curious, what are some of the trends that you see coming in security? What should people be aware of? Obviously, there's a two-letter word I think that everybody's going to probably talk about, thinking about how AI works its way into as well. So, Andrew, let's start with you there.
So we might want to have the AI discussion last. I think one of the biggest trends is going to be how to have visibility all the way down to the endpoint. Consistent visibility all the way down to the endpoint. It's lightweight because it's important. That's the most critical point. People are coming into your environment or using your resources or using resources on your behalf through a variety of different mechanisms. And we need to, and we cannot guarantee, in the old days when we would set up somebody to work from their home periodically, we gave them a endpoint device, a firewall or something. They got there, they set up a VPN tunnel back to the office, they were on their little segment, etc. But now you can't do that. And in a household, think about the difference between households 10, 15 years ago that had maybe one or two devices that were internet capable regularly. And now every average person has 7 devices that are on the internet at least, right? And so when you look at that difference, you have to have a way to segment people's traffic seamlessly. You can't have them saying, oh yes, now I want to be on this VPN, now I need to be on this. It has to be seamless, but it still has to be effective. And I think we're going to see more in that regard. And AI is going to help us make either decisions or get reporting on that.
Yeah, I think right now that the work from home is, to your point, has created a big blind spot in the network, and I think obviously whenever you have a blind spot, that's bad. But I think it's becoming a much bigger part of the network, where it used to be the exception is now the norm. How about you, Eric? What are you looking at in the future?
Yeah, I agree largely with what Andrew is saying. And the visibility piece is very important. So, and that is where probably the AI aspect is going to come into play first, especially even for the small, mid-sized business. How do you get to that information? How do you know what is really going on? And how can you generate the reporting that might be required for compliance and other purposes? that when you don't have dedicated in-house IT personnel, when you are relying on an MSP and so forth to be managing your environment, and the MSP may not knows a lot about your environment, but doesn't know necessarily everything about that environment. So that's where the AI piece will come into play, I think, first, and will be important for for the trending of where we go. Implementing the ability to get that reporting out, get the information, the simplified way of finding out what has occurred. That's going to be critical, I think, in the very near future.
Yeah, and actually, Andrew, to your point, I just did it when you mentioned all the devices connected. I went to look at my dashboard here. I currently have 70 devices connected to my home network. So
there you go.
So ZKast, in terms of sort of the environment for small business, I think it's, the hybrid ecosystem is reality, right? I mean, the cloud brings great leverage to a small business that can leverage a secure cloud service. O365, Salesforce. I mean, there are so many powerful tools out there to be used, but they rely on those vendors to provide that security, maybe with some minimal implementations, right? But we've seen most recently in the auto industry what happens when you put all your eggs in that basket. So that's one comment. But in terms of securing and managing that environment, it becomes more of a role to investigate, validate, confirm for the small business. That's a trustworthy solution, right? And then, but you've got the on-premise, and that's not going away for many organizations. And then it's that decision of where do you protect which asset, right? And I'm from South Georgia. It's a little company that's known all over the world. That formula was created there by a pharmacist, Dr. Pemberton, and forever that was protected at Truist Bank in Atlanta, Coca-Cola. It's now at the World Coke Museum, right? But it is physically protected in a lockbox. So it's just each customer, each client, each organization has to decide how and where best to protect its data and its systems, and that will continue to shift and evolve. So I think for us, it's gateway in and out. It's get to the endpoint, create telemetry, extend to the cloud. Coordinate all those people and pieces to provide that visibility to our small business, partners. So it's a lot of pieces to put together, and nobody can do it alone.
Yeah, and just real quick, I want to go back to AI. How do you, and whoever wants to weigh in can, when you think about AI, are you excited about it? There's obviously a lot of the bad guys using it. It creates a lot more data concerns for companies. Mm-hmm. From a security perspective, when we net this out, will AI be good or bad for security?
I'll say I'm really very excited about AI, and I'm looking for the advantages that AI is going to offer to not only our clients, but in the security realm as well. There will be tremendous advantages when as AI matures, for us to be able to leverage that in the small to mid-sized business sector to better secure our environment. It's early days, but I am excited about it. Are the threat actors out there using AI already? Yes. But we could go. I've been in the business long enough that I can go back in time, and I've seen this over and over again. Use it. Overall, the good usually outweighs the bad, but we all hear about the bad, and we don't hear about the good.
Yeah.
I'm concerned. I think AI is going to provide value, but I think AI is going to largely be like atomic energy, atomic weaponry, meaning the bad will be very bad that comes from it, and the good will be very good that comes from it. It won't be like a lot of other technologies where it leans more so toward the good side, like the good prevails. I think that there's going to be bad actors that are able to really weaponize it, and I think that there will be some good advantages that come out of it that are also pretty good.
Yeah, and I think this definitely becomes a fight fire with fire, right? If the bad guys are going to be using AI, then you need to use it as well. So,
in terms of that fight, though, the components of AI rely on data, right? And in order to leverage data, we have to trust that data. We have to secure that data. We have to have the right contextualization. We have to have the right resources to apply the AI tools. So the amount of data that's available to apply AI is enormous. The ability to do it in small business, I think, is probably, there's more opportunity there faster in the right scenario. But it's balancing the collection, retention, using that data in the right way, and then being able to keep the man on the edge of the loop and not in the middle of the loop. The last thing these guys can handle is multiple clients having misconfigurations at the same time because of some misconfigured AI concept. So turning over that decision is not going to go easy.
Got it. All right. Well, I think this, it's a good place to wrap up on that discussion. Anything else anyone wants to add?
I just want to say one thing. I think that for small businesses, one of the most important aspects of security, which is downplayed too often, is visibility. And I tell this to customers all the time, because at the end of the day, especially when you're small, but we see that even big people can't do it. But when you're small, you cannot protect everything. You will not stop everything. But if you can at least retroactively, forensically say, this is where we had a problem and this is why we had a problem, it goes a long way, because the worst thing you see is when someone gets breached and then they say, we're not sure what exactly got hit. We believe that such and such may be fine. It's like, no, fine, you got breached. But if you at least had visibility to know that it was only this segment, and you could say that with confidence, that would change the disposition of the consumer attitude to you and the customer attitude. Yeah. So visibility is key.
And I'll add to that also the understanding of small business to understand their vulnerability. I had a situation with a client that they did not believe that they were going to be vulnerable. They did not believe that they had any information, and I was able to do a risk analysis on them and show that they had, maybe over a $3 million exposure. And once they saw that, they understood the value of their data. So the other aspect, it's the visibility is wonderful to know how somebody did get in, because eventually somebody will. But also the understanding of having that small business understand their vulnerability, why they are vulnerable, and why they have to put the protections in place is also critically important.
Yeah, well, there's that expression: you can't secure what you can't see, right?
That's
so,
right.
And I think that's true. So thanks for adding that, Andrew. So anyways, unless anyone else has anything to add, I'm going to wrap up here. I think that was a great discussion. I think our takeaways here: security is obviously an ever-changing industry. I think it's fair to say that I think we'll have this continued best of breed versus integrated approach for a while. I think most companies that try and do best of breed generally struggle with it, or they just wind up throwing a lot of money at people at the problem. And clearly in the small business segment, that's not really practical. So I certainly invite everybody to take a look at Calyptix. I'll include a link to each of your companies in the YouTube description below. So on behalf of Eric, Andrew, and Ben, I'm ZKast from ZK Research, and thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe button. I'll see you next time on the next episode of ZKast.